Hey everybody, Jason Carlson here, and it's the holiday season, so I always like to throw out a few ideas as far as wine books to give to your wine-loving friends. Now, the common books that are out there that are gifted quite often, Adventures on the Wine Route by Kermit Lynch, The Wine Bible by Karen McNeil, they're all great, but I wanted to pick out a few books here that were a little bit more niche-y, a little bit more specific, and just some of my absolute favorites on top of that. So these are wonderful gifts for anybody who's into wine in your life, and they will appreciate them, I guarantee it. First one is A Wine Journey Along the Russian River by Steve Hymoff. Now, this book is actually 20 years old now, and what's really fascinating about it is that not only is it a really, really good comprehensive overview of the Russian River, the river itself, but the Russian River AVA, Sonoma County wines in general, but because it's 20 years old, you're getting a peek back into history. What was it like back in 2005? Really great interviews here with kind of the main players of the time, whose companies have changed quite a bit. Like Pete Sagatio is talked about here. This is 5 years before they sold the Sagatio Wine Company off. They talk a lot about Sonoma-Cutrer in here, which has, of course, become a little bit of a commoditized brand. There's all sorts of interesting stuff in here, but what's fascinating about this is definitely the geology and the geography of the Russian River. And I'm not going to give away the big reveal at the end of this, but let's just say that Steve Hymoff did a lot of research as far as why that weird bend is there right around Healdsburg, where the Russian River goes wow in a way that rivers really shouldn't. It's a fascinating book, one of my favorites, definitely a worthwhile thing. And because it's 20 years old, you can find good copies used online pretty easily. Next up here, Jamie Good, Authentic Wine. Toward natural and sustainable winemaking. Now, this book was put out by the University of California Press, I think, let's see here, 2011. So again, we're looking at a book that actually has a little bit of time on it right now. But here's the fascinating thing about this, is that this was the pre-natural wine movement book about natural wine. In other words, there's no politics, there's no agenda on it. It's simply what happens when you make wine absolutely in a hands-off way. And for anybody who's science-oriented, anybody who's kind of leaning into the idea of fermentation science, yeast science, things like that, this is the book. This is a book that brings up a lot of very, very interesting topics, a lot of great information, and sustainability, organics, biodynamics, looking at biodynamics from a scientific standpoint, which is fascinating. There's just a ton of information here, but they talk about natural wine and natural winemaking just in terms of just being hands-off, not as a category, because when this was written, of course, natural wine didn't really exist as a category yet. So what's really cool is that this book has a ton of information, but it did get overlooked with the wave of the natural wine discussion that started to kick off about 5 or 6 years after it. Very worthwhile. Definitely one to seek out. Next up, my absolute favorite wine author of all time is Gerald Asher. And Gerald Asher wrote this book here, Vineyard Tales. Vineyard Tales is a tremendous, tremendous book. There you can also find A Carafe of Red. He was the wine writer, I believe, for Gourmet Magazine for a long time. And his prose is so elegant. It's romantic. It is detailed. It reminds me a lot of Jeffrey Steingarten as well. And what's really great about this particular book, and I'm being very honest about this, when I'm feeling kind of burnt out on wine, when I've been talking to people a lot about wine, when I'm teaching too many wine classes, when every discussion left and right and center is all about wine, my brain just sort of burns out a little bit and I get a little bit tired of it. I pick up this book and I get re-energized about the topic, because everything that I got into wine for back in the 1990s, the core original ideas, they're all in here. And breaking it down region by region, great stories about specific bottles. This is just an amazing book. Chapter on Sauterne, chapter on Zinfandel. I mean, it's just gorgeous. So this particular one, Vineyard Tales, you can still find used in hardback version. You can find A Carafe of Red. I'm sure there's more out there from Gerald Asher, but Gerald Asher is the go-to for kind of bringing me back into the core as far as why I got into wine. Last up, just for the fun of it, Wine Cats. Wine Cats is awesome. Wine Cats will take any cat lover and wine lover on a journey of cats around the world at different wineries. And of course, I love cats. There's also a version called Wine Dogs, of course. Wine Dogs was really popular about 10 years ago. Wine Cats, again, kind of flew underneath the radar. I actually bought this in Australia and carried it all the way back with me back in 2008, I think, or something like that. So it is just wonderful. But anyway, if I just need to have a chuckle and kind of look at fun pictures of cats, that is what my go-to book is. So hopefully I give you a few ideas. Search away on the web and find some cool stuff and give some nice gifts to your friends and family. Have a great holiday, everybody. Talk to you more soon.